A man sits in a mountain of cold ashes outside the city gates, scraping his ruined skin with a jagged edge of broken pottery. At the actual dialogue echoing between heaven and earth, add one specific word, buried in the center of the first chapter. Because if Job is telling the truth, their entire universe collapses. If a man can lose 10 children and a lifetime of wealth Chinnum without a cause, then the world is wildly unsafe. If God is not a cosmic vending machine paying out blessings for good behavior and curses for bad, then the friends have absolutely no control over their own lives. Their good behavior guarantees nothing. Their sacrifices protect nothing. Their invisible walls could fall at any moment. They are not trying to comfort a broken man. They are trying to protect a broken system. They need Job to be guilty. They desperately need his suffering to be a transaction. If Job earned his ashes, then the ledger still works. If Job earned his graves, then the friends can sleep at night knowing their own children are safe from the fire. They worship a predictable equation. They worship the math. Job refuses to confess to a crime he did not commit. He holds his ground. He drags his exhausted body to the edge of the ash heap. He stares up at the brass sky. He bypasses the friends entirely. He bypasses the accuser. He screams directly at the throne. He demands a subpoena. He demands God explain the math. He wants the creator of the universe to come down into the dirt, open the books, and show him the exact line item that justifies this punishment. You start to see something the traditional reading completely misses. The book of Job is not an explanation of why we suffer. He wants his day in court. He wants the ledger balanced. But you do not subpoena the creator of the stars without the sky tearing open. And when the answer finally comes, it is going to shatter the ledger forever. We read this ancient text and we judge the three friends. We think they are cruel. We think their theology is primitive. We sit safely on the other side of history, looking at Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, and we wonder how they could be so blind. But we are exactly the same. We have just dressed our transactional religion in modern clothes. Think about the quiet, invisible contracts you have signed in your own mind. You raise your kids in the church. You put your money in the offering plate. You do not cheat on your spouse. You keep your head down. You serve your community. And you do the right thing. And in exchange, you expect the invisible wall of blessing to hold. You expect the midnight tragedies to happen to other people. You expect the car to make it through the intersection safely. We barter with our morality. We barter with our prayers. We treat the creator of the universe like a divine vending machine. Insert enough good behavior, pull the lever of faith, and out comes the jackpot of a comfortable, pain-free life. The ledger is comfortable because the ledger gives us control. It is an interrogation of why we worship. To feel the weight of this story, you cannot start in the ashes. But then the machinery breaks. The heavy, certified letter from the bank lands with a thud on the kitchen counter. The sterile, chemical smell of the hospital waiting room settles into your clothes. The doctor walks in, holding a clipboard, looking at the floor instead of your eyes. And what is the very first question we ask when the fire falls? Why is this happening to me? Listen to the terrifying assumption hiding inside that question. The assumption is that suffering requires a cause. The assumption is that if we did not commit a crime, the pain is fundamentally illegal. We are operating on the exact same theological math as the men sitting in the dirt accusing Job. We hate the concept of Chinnum. We do not want a world where grace is gratuitous and suffering can be uncaused. We want a God who can be managed by our good behavior. We want a deity we can put in debt, because if our righteousness obligates God to protect us, then we are the ones actually in charge. Our modern devotion is not a surrender. It is a negotiation. But a negotiated love is not love. It is just commerce. And God refuses to let human beings reduce him to a merchant. The accuser in chapter 1 claimed that human beings are incapable of loving God for nothing. The friends in the ash heap claim that God is incapable of acting without a ledger. Job, bleeding, You have to look up. You have to step out of the desert dirt and walk into a courtroom that exists outside of time, and broken. Claimed that the ledger was mathematically incorrect and demanded God come down to fix it. Everyone is staring at the sky, waiting for the cosmic accountant to arrive with the books. But the sky does not open with an explanation. It opens with a storm. The air pressure drops. The wind picks up, carrying the stinging bite of desert sand. The sky, which has been brass and silent for 35 chapters, suddenly bruises purple and black. A whirlwind touches down on the edge of the ash heap. Job covers his face against the flying dirt. The three friends fall backward, and a voice speaks out of the spinning chaos. God has arrived, but he does not bring a ledger. He does not bring a spreadsheet balancing the cosmic accounts. He does not even bring up the accuser, the wager, or the concept of Chinam. Instead, he takes Job on a tour of a wild, untamable universe. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Who shut in the sea with doors when it burst out from the womb? Have you entered the storehouses of the snow? Can you bind the chains of the Pleiades or loose the cords of Orion? The questions beat down like heavy rain. God points to the wild donkey roaming the wasteland. He points to the mountain goat, giving birth on the high crags. The text shifts the camera. Heaven opens. A royal assembly is gathering. The Hebrew describes the Bene Elohim, the sons of God, celestial beings. He points to the ostrich abandoning her eggs in the dirt. Devoid of wisdom, but faster than a horse. He points to Behemoth, resting in the lotus plants, a creature of pure, irrational muscle. He points to Leviathan, the sea monster, whose breath sets coals on fire, who treats iron weapons like straw. He shows Job a world that is completely outside human utility. The wild donkey does not plow a human field. The ostrich does not make a good human investment. Leviathan cannot be put on a leash to pull a human cart. The universe was not built around human commerce. The universe is wild and terrifying and violently beautiful, and God delights in it all. God is not avoiding Job's pain. He is destroying Job's paradigm. This is not a courtroom defense. It is a cosmic unveiling. God is showing Job that if he cannot understand the mechanics of a thunderstorm, if he cannot tame a crocodile, if he cannot explain the mathematical precision of the stars, how can he possibly demand the moral architecture of the universe fit into a human ledger? The transaction is a delusion. The vending machine theology is an insult to the majesty of the Creator. God never tells Job why the fire fell. He never mentions the heavenly wager. He gives Job absolutely no data to balance the scales. Instead, he gives Job his absolute, terrifying presence, coming to present themselves before the throne of Yahweh. The divine council takes its seats. The floor shines like a pavement of sapphire, and right there, in the eye of the storm, Job makes a decision that answers the accuser's question once and for all. Job puts his hand over his mouth. The wind dies down. The dust settles on his ruined, bleeding skin. He has received absolutely no explanation for the 10 graves just outside the city gates. He has received no apology for the fire that consumed his legacy. He has not been given a single piece of data to balance the scales of justice. But the ledger in his mind is gone. He looks at the terrifying, beautiful creator of Leviathan, and he bows his head into the dirt. He repents in dust and ashes. He is not repenting for a secret sin that caused his suffering, as his friends suggested. He is repenting for trying to reduce the creator of the Pleiades to a transactional merchant. Job chooses to worship, even in the ashes, even with the graves still fresh. And in that moment of silent surrender, the accuser's question is finally, permanently answered. Can a human being love God, Chinam? Yes. The accuser loses the wager not because Job gets his wealth back, but because Job lets go of his right to demand it. The transaction is dead. The uncaused devotion is born. The air is heavy with absolute sovereignty. And then, a figure walks through the doors. He is called the Satan. Now, the camera pivots away from the ancient Middle East. It pivots to you. We spend our entire lives trying to build hedges, We invest massive amounts of spiritual energy into creating safe, predictable equations where our good behavior guarantees a comfortable outcome. We want the math to work. We want to hold the receipts. But eventually, the wind sweeps in from the wilderness. The four corners of the house shake. The invisible wall comes down. You find yourself sitting in the modern equivalent of an ash heap. You feel the heavy, sharp paper of a finalized divorce decree sitting on your kitchen counter. You sit in the sterile, humming silence of an empty house on a Tuesday night. You swallow the metallic taste of adrenaline in your mouth when the doctor looks at the floor and finally says the word you were praying you would not hear. The accuser is not just a character in an ancient Hebrew poem. He is pacing the earth right now. He is standing in the ruins of your carefully constructed life, pointing a finger at your heart, looking at the creator of the universe. He is asking the exact same question. Does she serve God for nothing? Does he worship Chinam? In this ancient context, it is not a proper name. It is a title. The accuser, the prosecuting attorney of the cosmos. If you only love God when the ledger balances, you do not love God. You love the ledger. True devotion is not a negotiation you make in the light. It is a surrender you make in the dark. Worship is not a payment for services rendered. It is the defiant act of loving a wild God for no other reason than the fact that he is God. The man in the ashes finally stands up. The wind of the whirlwind settles back into the deep desert, and the brass sky above Uz is quiet. The accuser has vanished from the sapphire floor of heaven. The wager is over, won by a broken man holding a piece of jagged pottery. The heavenly court gathered, and a transactional wager was placed on the floor. 4 messengers ran from the desert, and a lifetime of wealth was erased in minutes. A wife screamed to curse the sky, and a husband bowed his head in the dirt. 3 friends unleashed an avalanche of blame, and the human need for a religious ledger was exposed. A broken man demanded to see the math, and the creator of the stars answered from a storm. The terrifying wildness of Leviathan was unveiled, and the myth of the cosmic vending machine was shattered. The accuser asked if human devotion could survive without a cause, and a man in the ashes proved that it could. 1 word, 1 wager. He walks in with dust on his feet, having just returned from roaming the earth, pacing back and forth across human history. But maybe the part that stays with me most is the silence of the whirlwind. When God finally speaks out of the spinning chaos, he never once mentions the accuser. He never mentions the wager on the sapphire floor. Job wins the cosmic trial, and God never gives him the satisfaction of knowing he proved the devil wrong. Job has to surrender without ever seeing the ledger. If you are in a season where the math of your life has stopped working, where the hedge has been removed and the fire has fallen, Chinam without a cause, the book of Job is a place to sit. The whirlwind does not offer a spreadsheet. It offers a presence. If this opens something for you, subscribe and leave a comment. Even 1 word helps. Share this with someone who is sitting in the ashes of their own broken ledger. Pray for us as we keep digging into these texts, and may the God who knows the wildness of your desert hold you in the storm and give you a love that cannot be bought. Looking for fractures in the human condition, God points down at the man well, the man who is not yet in the ashes. The wind carries the smell of infection and dry dirt. 10 graves have just been dug. 10 children have just been buried. At this moment in the timeline, Job is whole. He is wealthy. He is upright. He feeds the hungry. He shelters the poor. He offers sacrifices for his children just in case they sinned in their hearts. He is living a life of pristine, unbroken religious devotion. God holds him up as the ultimate exhibit of human righteousness. Have you considered my servant Job? The accuser looks down at the perfect man, living his perfect life, offering his perfect prayers, and he smiles. He does not deny Job's morality. He does not invent a hidden sin. He does not claim that Job is secretly a hypocrite behind closed doors. Instead, he asks a single question, a question that strikes at the root of every prayer ever prayed, every sacrifice ever offered, every hymn ever sung in the history of the world. The accuser drops 1 Hebrew word on the courtroom floor. And that word is about to put God himself on trial. We are a species built on commerce. Since the dawn of civilization, human beings have understood the world through the cold, rational lens of the ledger. You work the dirt. You get the crop. You hand over the copper. You get the bread. You break the law. You feel the whip. Everything is a transaction, an exchange of goods and services designed to keep the chaos at bay. 10 lifetimes of grief have collapsed into a single, suffocating afternoon. Flocks have been burned. Servants have been slaughtered. And historically, our approach to the divine has been exactly the same. In the ancient Near East, the gods were fundamentally unpredictable, dangerous forces of nature. You built temples of heavy, quarried stone to house them. You burned the fat of animals, so the smell of roasting meat would soothe them. You poured expensive wine onto the dry dust to bribe them. The arrangement was explicitly commercial. We give you devotion. You give us rain. We give you obedience. You give us protection. The accuser steps into the sapphire courtroom and points a finger at the very foundation of human spirituality. He looks at God and essentially says, "You are running a cosmic protection racket." His argument is brilliant because it is so devastatingly cynical. He agrees with God that Job is flawless. He agrees that Job is building altars, feeding the poor, and living a life of moral perfection. But the accuser challenges the motive underneath the machinery. He argues that Job's devotion is entirely dependent on God's payroll. God has placed a hedge around Job, a literal, invisible wall of blessing. Look at the man's estate, the thousands of sheep bleating in the valleys, the gold accumulating in his tents, the feasts his children enjoy, while the wine flows freely. The accuser claims that Job is just a smart businessman who knows how to read the ledger. Job is not serving you. He is employing you. An empire of wealth has been erased by fire and wind. He is bleeding. He is grieving. This is the terrifying accusation at the center of the book. The accuser is suggesting that true, disinterested love for God does not actually exist. He is saying that human beings are incapable of loving a creator without an ulterior motive. If the blessings stop, the worship stops. If the invisible wall comes down, the hymns turn into curses. Every prayer Job prays, the accuser argues, is just a coin dropped into a cosmic vending machine. And this is where the text grips us. The accuser is not just indicting an ancient patriarch in the land of Uz. He is indicting the human heart. He is holding up a mirror to the quiet, secret contracts we all make with the universe. We do the right thing. We expect the right outcome. We keep the rules. We expect the reward. The accuser demands a test. Tear down the hedge. Take away the wages. Strip the flesh from his bones. Let us see what happens to the perfect man's theology when the math suddenly stops working. God agrees to the test, but the detail that changes everything is the exact word the accuser uses to trigger the collapse. And his wife is standing over him, telling him to curse God and die. You probably know his name, Job. The accuser steps forward. He looks at the Creator. He points a finger at the earth. He asks one question. Jobed, Kelance. Does Job fear God for nothing? For nothing. The challenge is accepted. The invisible wall is removed. The catastrophe begins. It happens rapidly. It happens on an ordinary afternoon. Job is sitting in his estate. The sky is clear. The ledgers are perfectly balanced. Then, the first runner arrives. He is out of breath. His sandals are broken. He smells of sweat and copper blood. The Sabaeans attacked. They took the oxen. They killed the servants with the edge of the sword. I alone escaped to tell you. Before he even finishes speaking, another runner crashes through the doors. Fire fell from the sky. It burned the sheep. It consumed the young men. I alone escaped. Before that, breath settles. A third man arrives, covered in red desert dirt. The Chaldeans formed 3 bands. They stole the camels. They slaughtered the herdsmen. I alone escaped. And then, the fourth runner steps into the room. His voice is shaking. A great wind swept in from the wilderness. It struck the four corners of the house. The roof collapsed. The feast is over. The children are dead. 4 messengers. 4 blows. 4 minutes to erase a lifetime of careful, righteous building. The fire is not an accident. It is an argument. The universe is waiting for Job's response. The accuser is watching. Heaven is holding its breath. It is one of the oldest books in the Bible, a towering masterpiece of ancient poetry. If Job's religion was a contract, this is the moment the contract is breached. He has every legal right to walk away. He has every right to curse the silent sky. Instead, he stands up. He grips his expensive robe. He rips it down the middle. He shaves his head until it is bare. He falls forward into the dust. And he worships. Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. The accuser loses the first round. The transactional model is broken. Job did not curse God. But the accuser is not done. He returns to the sapphire floor. He demands to touch Job's own flesh. He demands bone and skin and nerve endings. The sores erupt. The fever burns. His skin cracks open and oozes into the cold dirt. He takes a broken piece of pottery to scrape the infection from his own legs. Now, the accuser waits. Now, the wife screams her terrible advice. Now, the 3 friends arrive from the east, sit in the ash heap for 7 days in total, suffocating silence, and wait for Job to finally speak. Everything hangs on that one question from the accuser in chapter 1. Does Job fear God for nothing? But the English phrase for nothing completely masks the depth. Most people assume the book of Job is a philosophical essay on pain. They read it as a manual on why bad things happen to good people, of the challenge. Because hiding underneath that phrase is a single Hebrew word that defines the entire book. When you look at the dry scratch of ink on the ancient Hebrew scroll, the accuser's question in chapter 1 is not a general inquiry. It is a highly specific legal challenge. Look at Job 1-9. The accuser stands before the throne and asks, does Job fear God for nothing? The word the English translators render as for nothing is the Hebrew word chinam. It is the axis on which the entire book turns. The noun form, chen, means grace or favor, but the adverb form, chinam, means freely, gratuitously, without compensation, and crucially without a cause. It carries the imagery of an empty merchant's scale. No heavy iron weights on one side, no copper coins on the other. It means something done purely for its own sake, untethered from any transactional reward. The accuser is asking, is Job capable of chinam? Is he capable of uncaused devotion? And this exact word becomes a haunting echo that rings 7 times throughout the text. It does not just stay in the accuser's mouth. It becomes the vocabulary of God himself. In chapter 2, after Job loses his wealth and his children, but refuses to curse the sky, God points back at the man in the dirt. He looks at the accuser and says, they assume it is a masterclass in human patience, a theological attempt to defend a good God when the world completely falls apart. You incited me against him to destroy him without cause. The word God uses for without cause is chinam. God is acknowledging the terrifying reality of the situation. Job did not do anything to earn the fire. He did not trigger a curse. The destruction fell upon him gratuitously. Chinam. Later, when Job is sitting in the cold ashes, scraping his skin and tasting the metallic tang of his own blood, he uses the exact same word. In chapter 9, he screams at the heavens, claiming that God multiplies his wounds without cause. Chinam. And in chapter 22, the friends will falsely accuse Job of stripping the naked of their clothing without cause. Chinam. That one root word changes everything about how we read this book. His suffering is not a random tragedy. It is the violent, systematic removal of every possible reason to love God. If seeing the architecture of the original Hebrew is shifting how you read these ancient texts, you are exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe. Because every week we go deeper into the text than you knew was possible. So the three friends finally break their silence. They have sat in the dirt for a week, listening to the wind howl over the fresh graves of Job's children. And it does carry that weight on its surface. But if you look closer, if you look at the architecture of the Hebrew text, and as they begin to speak, they unleash some of the most beautiful, poetic, and entirely wrong theology in the entire Bible. Because Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar are not there to comfort their friend. They are there because they are absolutely terrified. And they are terrified because they cannot allow the concept of Chinam to exist. The silence finally breaks. The sun beats down on the ash heap. The flies swarm over the ruined estate. The smell of necrosis is heavy in the stagnant air. Eliphaz clears his dry throat. He looks at the man bleeding in the dirt. He points a finger. He speaks. Then Bildad speaks. Then Zophar speaks. Their words come down like hammers. You sinned. Job, you must have sinned. You withheld bread from the hungry. You sent widows away empty. You crushed the arms of the fatherless. Job shakes his head. His skin cracks. The broken pottery leaves red streaks on his arms. He denies it all. But they do not stop. They cannot stop. The cycle of accusation spins faster and faster across 30 chapters of brutal, escalating poetry. They pile on the guilt. They pull crimes out of thin air. They demand he confess to a secret. Hidden rebellion. Why? Why are his oldest friends attacking him in his darkest hour?